Well, that was straightforward for once, wasn't it? Rangers beating Dundee 3-0 in the Scottish Premiership. Danny Rohl gets his third straight win in the Scottish Premiership as Rangers boss. Chris, I'll come straight to you. I said that was quite easy, and that is not what Rangers have been like in quite a long time away from home. It's only one game. I thought they dropped off in that second half, but a bright first half performance, and yeah, most importantly, the win for Danny Rohl going into this international break.
Rangers go into a break on the back of a victory. It's been a long time, and it feels like a long time since we've had that. Privilege. We always say, if it's a negative, it turns into a really long fortnight. People also not in a good mood, not in a good place. People then being critical. Big questions being answered. So the fact that it was as straightforward as comfortable, good for Rangers, good for Danny Rohl, most importantly, good for us. I'm sure everybody will agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Loads to get into. So let's start with a little run through of the game. Rangers raced into a 2-goal lead pretty early, took the lead with a Nico Raskin header from a corner. Raskin, Rangers' smallest player, really continues to be their biggest threat from set pieces. And soon after, it was 2-0 Mikey Moore, and what was his brightest showing in a Rangers shirt so far. Should have probably had a second goal, but we'll come on to that. He scored his first goal for the club after a well-worked move. Second half was quite dull, all things considered. Dundee had a little bit more control. They made some changes in the game to try and be a bit more aggressive, but there was a little bit of a glint added to the victory by Jeje Gassama late on. There was 3 changes made at halftime. Did that help? Did that not help? We'll come on to that too. But let's start with the positive, Chris, because it's 3-0. It's a win away from home. It's and a relatively comfortable win. I know if Dundee maybe get a goal in that second half, then it becomes a little bit more uncomfortable. But really, everything Jack Butland had to do was pretty routine. Danny Rohl did change the team. We were wondering, will it be a back 3? Will it be a back 4? And he said pretty early on he won't be confined to one shape. And today, I think, was another good example of a few small alterations helping Rangers, because Mikey Moore and Danilo were able to kind of operate in those pockets of space with Bojan Miovski running beyond and James Tavernier stretching the game at right back. But also, if you look at how Rangers earned the corner for their first goal, they were turning defences, being a bit more attritional, a bit more direct. And that gave them the foothold, the leverage to go and play a little bit more football for the second goal. So while they tail off over 90 minutes, it was a bright opening 20-30 where they actually played some really nice stuff, didn't they?
They did, and you mentioned Mikey Moore there. I thought that was his best performance in a Rangers shirt. I think you could see how much the goal meant to him. He spoke in the mix zone on Thursday night about being a bit more content with his performances of late, and rightly so, because I think he's shown a couple of flashes off the bench where he has been impressive. I think you could see though that he feels like he needs a goal. He needs to add numbers to his games. He's obviously signed as a winger. Now, people spoke about what he could add in the wider area, but you mentioned those wee pockets of space. He's technically good enough on the ball. He's got good feet. He's got good vision, as he showed today. He can finish as well. That playing slightly more central, I think it suits him. It can get the best out of him. The rest of the forward line, certainly the focal point of it in terms of Miovski, Shamiti in the second half, I think that's an issue. I'm sure that's something we'll continue to talk about over this international break. But the shape and the way that the forward line has operated over the last few games, I think we're seeing that Mikey Moore could be a really effective part of that.
Yeah, he can, and he does look more comfortable in the kind of central pockets, because if you look at, we'll maybe look at this more tomorrow, Chris, but the way that he picks up the ball for that second goal, he's initially free kind of between the lines. He drops to get the ball and then he runs beyond. And it's that balance of, on one side you have a left winger and on the other side you have a right winger who's not really a right winger, is he's moving inside the pitch and trying to make things happen centrally. He's had a good couple of weeks, Mikey Moore, hasn't he, Chris? And I think he was a man of the match today. I think that's the best showing he's had in a Rangers shirt. And I don't know if you saw it at the end, but it looked like Danny Rohl, who was making his way over to the away crowd and had a bit of a moment with them. He was also trying to encourage Jady McGoma to have a moment with the fans. he does seem to be, as a lot of new managers tend to do, but he does seem to be picking up a bit of confidence in players who didn't have much a few weeks ago. Because let's not forget, Mikey Moore had a difficult start in a Rangers shirt at times through not just his fault. I think he was played in too many different positions and he was playing in a struggling team. I think of the 1-1 draw with Falkirk away from home, and he was playing on the right there, but he looked much less effective on that day because I think of these subtle tweaks that Danny Rohl is making from game to game in order to try and maybe not compromise players to a system, but try and get the best out of players by compromising a system from game to game to their strengths.
I think that flexibility to not be as stubborn is probably one of the words that you could use. Not to just stick with a formation and say, this is how I play, this is my belief, philosophy, blueprint, however you want to define it. You have to be adaptable in this game, and I think Danny Rohl has shown that. I think the way the forward line is set up, it's getting more out of Danilo, who's had an encouraging couple of weeks, not perfect, but better than what he had done in the weeks ahead of that. Moore was spoken about, number 9, I think, is an issue. But see a number of the comments coming in, it's just people saying there's signs of progress, there's something to actually get behind, there's something to latch onto. How many matches did we preview and review earlier on in the season when Russell Martin was in charge, saying there's just nothing there was nothing to give the fans any insight or any hope that this was going to get better. Now 3 wins out of 6, it's not perfect from Danny Rohl. No one's saying that he's come in and made a huge impact, but you have to say that he has made a big impact, both in terms of giving a bit of confidence back into some of the players, changing up the way the team is playing. And as I say in my analysis piece that's on the site, the relationship between the man in the dugout and the Rangers fans is night and day. And it's not because he's done anything out of this world. He's just made Rangers slightly better, and he's given these fans that are going to these games hope that it's been slightly better, but it could become better and better and better. It is going to be small steps, but I think the way that he's handled himself, the way that he's spoken, that rapport that he's clearly trying to build up with the fans, it all just feeds into a bit more of a narrative and a feel-good factor. He's actually down in front of me just doing his RTV stuff as we speak before he heads into his press conference. But I've been really impressed with what he's done, not just on the park in the last wee while. It's just there's a far different feel round about this club, this team, and this support right now.
I think this comment from James sums it up, where he says 3 wins in a row and loads of room for improvement. If we, and this is I'm stating the obvious here, Chris, but if Rangers had drawn these 3 games, the tone of conversation would be very different. And they've not deserved to draw these 3 league games, right? I think they've maybe slightly fortuitous to win at Hibs, but generally over the course, those 3 back-to-back wins, they've deserved them. But if you win, if you get the wins, if you're a bit more attritional, if you're a bit less dogmatic at the start, and this is what we saw with Russell Martin, if you don't compromise at the start, I always think back to Motherwell on the opening day of the season when Rangers were conceding all those chances. And rather than bringing Manny Fernandez or an extra defender off the bench, as he actually had done away in Panathinaikos, he ended with a midfield of, I think, Barron, Lyle Cameron and Nadim Barami. And if he'd got, we've lost Chris momentarily there. We'll try and bring him back in. Will we? We'll remove him for a second. I'll continue to make my point while we wait on Chris that James raises. But if you got that result on that day, winning gives you a lot of time, and winning covers a lot of sins, doesn't it? When you don't get those wins, you don't have the time to build. And Danny Rohl, I wasn't at the game, I was watching it at home, but it seemed to me like the away crowd were singing his name for a large part of that. And when you have that bond, it's a much better starting place than what happened at the start of the season. Ken says it was a comfortable win, especially when Rangers get an early goal. Joe Porter saying, how can Rangers look worse up front than last season? It's mind-blowing. I think I've got a Chris Jack back with me now. I'll try to bring him back into you shortly. Chris, we can't see you, but can we hear you?
I hope so. I can see you. Why can you not see me?
No, let us know we can see you now. There you are, Chris. Right, don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. I just about survived without you. Listen, let's talk a little bit about the second half and what happened then, Chris, because there was a drop-off and it's 3-0. I feel we should focus on that more than what wasn't there. But there's a comment here from, if I can just find it, speaking about the role of Danilo Williams, saying Danilo is the player that makes us create chances, said it for I don't know how long. I think that's a good point. I know Danilo doesn't get the assist for Mikey Moore, but it's him between the lines, and I think his position in between the lines that actually creates a lot of space for others. And those changes at the break, maybe it's down to fitness, maybe it's down to just trying to share the minutes across the park because Rangers have had a lot of games. But especially when they dominate the ball, Danilo is making Rangers play better. And that was actually the case, I think, around about this time last year when he and Igaman and Hadji came back into the team and things started to click a little bit more. Is that how you kind of saw it, Chris, from your vantage point?
I see in the piece on the site just now, after such a quick start, you get your first goal, you follow that up, you get your second. I felt like the afternoon was there for Rangers to really go and kick on. You've spoken about Moore, mentioned Danilo there. I felt like an afternoon where they could get back in amongst the goals. Mikey Moore should have done. I think the third one is harsh to chop it off. You're then looking at, well, can Miovski get himself a goal? Can Shamiti get himself a goal? Can Rangers go and maybe win 4-5, maybe even more? Because I think that was there for Rangers. Third one doesn't go in, it drops off, it becomes a bit sluggish after that. Second half is a bit of a non-event. I think Osama getting that third right at the end, again, a really nice finish. We've seen that finish from him a couple of times now.
Yeah,
it didn't flatter Rangers at all. They thoroughly deserved to win this game by 3 goals. But I just felt there was more in it for them. And it feels strange because how many games have we sat and we've complained about performances and said this has not been good or that's not been good. When they come away from home to a venue that Celtic also had some difficulties at not that long ago, and you win 3-0, it should be all positives. And there are a lot of positives for Rangers, but I think when Danny Rohl's heading back down the road tonight, I think that will be his main frustration that Rangers did not win by a greater margin. Just as the lights go off around me here.
No. They're really trying to disrupt the Rangers Review post-match show today, aren't they? I guess, Chris, though, like Paul's saying there, 1 goal against in 3 games, and I guess it is it's building blocks, isn't it? And it's baby steps to a degree, because this is a team that hadn't scored 2 goals away from home or gone into a 2-0 lead since Rangers beat Celtic at Parkhead in the Old Firm that Barrie Ferguson managed and won 3-2. This is a Rangers team that have still only won less than 5 domestic games in the league by this point in the season. And I think you could see Danny Rohl on the touchline, when he's at his most animated, is when he's trying to encourage his team to win the ball back. And clearly he was a bit frustrated at the intensity. The changes didn't seem to help today. But I guess that's maybe just where this team is too, that if they get that third goal, and I think that third goal should stand, we'll talk about it in a moment, then maybe they go on to get a 4th and a 5th. In the end, 3 doesn't flatter them, but sustaining that for the whole 90 minutes is maybe a little bit beyond them at the moment. On the topic of that third goal, can you see why it's chopped off? I'll tell you why I think it shouldn't be, because he makes the save. So if you watch it from the angle that the shot actually occurs, McCracken makes a brilliant save, but he's not directly behind Mohamed Diamande, so he can see it. So that's why it felt like a strange goal to chop off for me. And it was an unfortunate moment for Mikey Moore, because he probably deserved that second goal in that first half. I take it you're not going to disagree with me on that VAR decision.
No, I think if you're going by the letter of the law, yes, but it just feels a bit pernickety to be chopping off a goal for that. When we actually saw the VAR check ongoing, also live in the stadium, I thought it might be actually for Moore being offside. One of the guys just to my right here actually had a stream of it and were able to, we can have one look at it and say, well, it's not Moore, what is it? You then see Ashley McDermott come over to the screen, and I think, is there a handball, is there a foul, or something else in the build-up? We can figure it out amongst ourselves that that's what it must have been in terms of Diamande positioning. Like you, if the keeper makes the save, he can't have been obstructed that much.
Yeah.
So I think it's a bit harsh, and it did feel as if it disrupted Rangers quite a lot. If that goes in, as we mentioned there, I think they go and they can cruise through the second half, and there's more goals in it for them. I felt it was almost a case of, well, we didn't get our third, but we've got 2. Dundee haven't offered anything so far. We're likely to go in and win this. Let's just kind of take our foot off the gas a wee bit, which I think was the wrong thing to do, but I do understand it. A bad moment for Moore, because I think he deserved it on his performance, and from actually a really tight angle. It's a good finish as well. It's not as if he's sent to the goal 6 yards out. He's done well to actually finish it, but it's one of them. It's not going to cause too many issues in the grand scheme of things, but it's denied Mikey Moore a second goal bonus of the afternoon.
Yeah. Colin Cooper says, why did we slow down after that third goal? Bosco getting in touch with him. Criticism, he says, looking forward to seeing you say how none of the new players are any good. I think that's we put it a bit more diplomatically than that, Chris, but I think it's fair. A lot of players still have a lot to prove. Scott disagrees. He says, I thought Chermiti was better than Miovski, who seems to be getting a free pass with every poor game he plays. Let's talk about Bojan Miovski, because we said before the game that this might suit him, and I do think his runs stretched the Dundee defence in behind and gave Moore and Danilo a bit of room to operate. It's not really happening for either of Rangers' number 9s at the moment. I take the point of Scott that Chermiti did. He puts himself about. Again, the argument would be for that much money, you need to have more end quality, and you need to have a bit of star quality that we've not seen as of yet. But there are questions as to either of these strikers going to score a lot of goals throughout the season, and if not, where else are they going to come from, Chris? Because Miovski hooked at half time. You presume it wasn't a deliberate plan for him to get 45 minutes because he hasn't played that much football as of late. He should have had more in the tank than that, presumably.
I think we just need more from both of them, don't we? You're not going to have a successful season if your number 9 doesn't contribute a certain level of goal. If they're not going to score, it's putting an awful lot of pressure on Moore to continue scoring now, putting an awful lot of pressure on Gassama to continue scoring. You're then looking at Tav, you're looking at Raskin chip in with a few.
Yeah.
We've said all season this is a side that's just short of goals, and if your number 9 or two number 9s are not chipping in, it doesn't bode that well for you. So they have to find a way of changing that. There was a moment in the first half, I can't remember who played the ball into Miovski, but it wasn't a hard one to control. You're just looking for him to take it in, to then move it, to then bring others into play, and it's a really poor touch. It bounced off him, and before you know it, chance is gone, move breaks down.
Yeah.
And it's not happening every single time he gets the ball, but you're just looking for more from a guy in that position. I've not been that enamoured with him over the last couple of weeks. It has to be said. Chermiti, I think we know his limitations by now. I thought second half he did okay. In a side where there's not a lot of service, there's not really an awful lot of intent. Rangers clearly not playing at the same tempo and with the same kind of attacking prowess as they were in the first half. So Chermiti probably got the worst of the halves, if you like, to come in and play. But Miovski, I think we do need to see more. As we mentioned pre-match, signed as a guy spoken about in terms of Premiership experience. We know the goals he scored for Aberdeen hasn't looked anywhere near being able to replicate that strike rate for Rangers. We were actually speaking in the press box here before the game about the kind of regression in that number 9. You've gone from Morelos, best that we've had for a long time, to Cholak, slightly worse, to Dessers on a par, maybe slightly worse at times, to then what we've got this season, and it's not that's not trending in a positive direction for Rangers in terms of our number 9 options.
Big Phil, maybe not that one, gets in touch to say second half dip but a routine win, 3 in a row more like it, 3 good goals and didn't make many defensive errors. And Scott makes a fair point. Second half was a drop off, but we were 2-0 up. Game psychology plays a part. Look at Roma midweek. Totally different game situation. I think that's a fair point from Scott. Just big picture stuff then, Chris, before we let you get back down the road and go and speak to Danny Rohl as well. When you were off momentarily, we were speaking a little bit more about that point that you made. Wins buy you time. Danny Rohl has played the role of not being Russell Martin well since he came in. But if you go right back to apologising to fans at Bran, and he's been likeable, and there's a lot to be said for being likeable, and there's a lot to be said for trying to build momentum in that way. Does the break come at a good or bad time for Rangers? Because a mixture of opinions in the comments about that. Does it give, as Morris says here, does it give Danny Rohl 2 weeks on the training pitch with his team? A lot of players will be away in international duty. Rangers still set to appoint this new assistant coach that we're waiting confirmation of, or would you keep wanting to play games? I guess it's a chance for him to take stock and take a breath, because he's not had that ever since he came into the club at the very start of this run of fixtures after the last international break.
I think it comes at a good time. I don't think he'll be that disappointed. Yes, I fully understand the theory of you want to keep playing, you want to keep winning if possible. But I think the break comes at a good time. It has been fairly hectic for him since we broke the story on that Monday morning. I think it was that he was travelling up to be the Rangers head coach. He's travelled up on the Monday. I think he was unveiled on the Tuesday. You fly Wednesday, game Thursday. You're then bouncing straight into this midweek weekend schedule with a couple of big European games in there, with an Old Firm game in there, and domestic games, Premiership games that you cannot afford to lose, because if you drop any points, you're potentially out of the title race before you've even got your feet under the desk. So it's not been perfect so far. He'll be the first to admit that, but certainly Premiership-wise, I think it's been good. And as I mentioned right at the top of the show, there's a bit more of a bond already between dugout and stand. I think there's more work to be done in terms of some of these players. I think they need a bit more of a shoulder, or of an arm around the shoulder at times. Others will say they need a kick up the backside at times, but I think they need moments themselves to have that bond with the fans, and things like winning at Easter Road or coming to Dundee in front of a big away support and being able to get a victory. They are small things in the bigger picture, but they can feed into the bigger picture. So I think the break comes at a decent time, gives them a bit of breather, a chance for Danny Rohl to take a bit of stock, see where he is, and you then go into this next tranche of fixtures. International breaks are behind us after this one, thankfully, and you know what's ahead of you. Obviously, Old Firm game coming up at New Year speaks for itself. We know the importance of the Christmas period, so he knows what's ahead of them. He knows the squad that he's got, and he knows what he has to go and do. You forget about Celtic, you forget about Hearts, you let them focus on themselves. Rangers need to turn this run of 3 into 4, 5, 6, 7. If they can do that over the next few weeks, time will tell where they are heading into January.
Yeah, let's see. We'll leave it there for now. If you are watching, please do hit the like button and subscribe. Really helps us. And about 45% of people who watch the Rangers review, Chris, do not subscribe. So if even 10 or 20% subscribed, then that would just make our weekend, wouldn't it? We'll be back tomorrow, myself and Chris and Derek, and we'll be right back with you across the international break. Extra videos at the weekend, of course, as well. Hope you're enjoying them, and some football to talk about after Rangers 3-0 win over Dundee at Dens Park. We'll leave it there for now. Danny Rohl's press conference coming up soon on the app and on the YouTube channel. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.